Thank you, Martha. We want to welcome everybody here. This is the last webinar in our series that we've run during the month of April called Encouraging Resilience Through Trauma. And we've had a number of awesome speakers, and we want to let you know in the chat box, in the chat area, I've already placed the website, which is the Superhead Learning blog, where we have the recordings of any of those webinars placed up there for you. So that will be continue to be available for you at least for a month. We want to be able to have you access that. And that's what we do. If for some reason you should get cut off during this this webinar, because we never know about weather and things like that, then that would be a place where you could go and actually access this and other of our webinars at that location. So without further ado, I want to introduce Dr. Janae Bishop. Dr. Janae Bishop is an expert in very many areas, but she has served our country. She is a wonderful health coach. I know she is very empowering and just very inspirational when she speaks to people, and just has a knack of getting to the heart of what's really important. So without any further ado, we're excited to have Dr. Janae Bishop with us. Thank you, Janae.
Janae?
Oh, hey, I guess it would help if I took myself off mute, huh? Can you hear me?
We can.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to see that all of you who were able to make it today. First and foremost, I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Pam Bruning for this opportunity to serve the audience today. And thank you to a very special Martha Green for providing the tech support with my PowerPoint. And so participants, as we get started, I want to encourage you, because I'm going to share a little bit about myself as we're going on so that in the interest of time, I can get as much content in as possible. But for those who are already on the line, I encourage you to answer the activating question on this next slide and enter your answer into the chat box. All right? So this next slide, yeah, thank you, thank you, Martha, if you would take us to that next slide. And then also,
you would encourage anyone new who has come in to mute your microphone, please. Sorry, Janae.
Oh, great. I was just hoping that you were still able to hear me. Okay, so fantastic. So you'll see there, ladies and gentlemen, in adjusting to a new normal, the activating question is for you to enter in the chat box, which of these wellness areas affects you today? Which of these wellness areas affect you today? And so as you're doing that, I want to share that these are the 8 areas of dimensions of wellness that research has shown enables individuals to be able to have a holistic and their most full life. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a few more seconds to do that as Martha takes us to the next slide. Yes, so as the next slide is proceeding forward, I know that we're using a lot of bandwidth, and so we may see that there's a slowness in the transmission, but thank you so much. So many people are using the technology and the internet, and so we are being flexible, and that's how we are as educators and as parents. So adjusting to I see some people in the chat saying that they're not able to hear. Martha and Pam, if you can just, I'm thinking that Martha can hear me because she is changing the slide.
I can hear you, yes. I'm just trying,
okay.
Right now I'm trying to mute everyone else. I think what happens is when some people come in and do not mute their microphones, that it can become a little bit more difficult for people to hear. So if you are in and you have not muted your microphone, please do so.
Fantastic. And I just saw a note from Pam in the chat that I can be heard. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this session today on adjusting to a new normal will increase your awareness that adjusting to a new normal requires the dimensions of wellness and well-being in order to adapt and find a new equilibrium in our life. So you'll see on the next slide, I have a picture of Sheryl Sandberg. And Sheryl Sandberg is one of the leaders in Google, as well as she's been a leader in Facebook. And she actually has experienced a significant loss in her life, she and her children. And in her quote, she shares, "You are not born with a fixed amount of resilience. Like a muscle, you can build it up, draw on it. When you need it, in that process, you will figure out who you really are. And you just might become the very best version of yourself." So I want to encourage everyone that during this time of pandemic and adjusting to transitioning into a new normal, realize that you also will be able to create the new version of yourself. And so the next slide, you will see a little bit about my background. As Pam has shared earlier, I am an Army veteran, and you'll see on that next slide a couple of pictures of myself. I served in the Army Reserves and the National Guard. You'll also see me there with my family. I have 2 adult sons, and so life can be very interesting. And for most of us, daily life does not look the same any particular day or in any stage in our life. Living in times of uncertainty can be overwhelming, but there are steps we can take to help us cope with stress and sustain our personal well-being, our mind, body, spirit, and beyond. So on the next slide, you'll notice that in my combined 18 years of Army Reserves and National Guard officer, part of my service was also spent during Desert Storm. And you'll see on that next slide that my husband also, who had served active duty, there were many periods as a family where we reunited during deployment. You also see that my 2 sons, they also are veterans, having served as a field artillery officer, and another son who was a medic in the military as well. You'll see at the bottom of the screen that I was also the proud principal of a high school, of an alternative school, and prior to coming into school administration, I have served as a school counselor in middle, high, and alternative settings. So as you can well imagine, as we move on to our next slide, that 28 years of marriage with my husband, serving as an educator for 21 years in Georgia, serving in the military, part of which was during a war environment, it is very clear that I have been prepared for many things. And the most recent challenge in my life that I've had to grieve through and prepare for was a couple of years ago when my husband at 52 had died in the sleep of a heart attack. So even experiencing the sudden loss of a loved one is a crisis that I know many others have experienced. So the COVID crisis has created mental health and wellness issues that cannot be ignored. These issues, when addressed, can enable a more effective adjustment to the new normal that is our life. As many of you have experienced, this pandemic has changed life as we know it. The headlines have focused mainly on physical health and wellness, as well as the way our daily habits must change, from physical distancing to wearing masks. Farther from the front pages, though, has been the critical issue of mental health, and data suggests we're facing serious challenges related to depression, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. I came across a brand new study by Qualtrics, which, as you see on this slide, identifies the nature of the global mental health crisis and provides data that sheds light on the issues that people are facing, and it provides insights about despair. So of the 2,700 people that they had conducted the survey with nationally, you'll notice also that they interviewed individuals from different walks of life. Many of you who are on the lines may actually have worked or are currently working in those different professions, and many of you are parents who are also teaching at home. The study found some interesting results. 67% of people report higher levels of stress, which, of course, that's to be expected. 57% say they have higher anxiety. 54% say they were emotionally exhausted. 53% say they feel sadness day to day. 50% feel they are more irritable, and 42% report their overall mental health has declined. And so as we move on to the next slide, I think it's important also to realize that even as parents who are working outside of the home or you're working inside of your home, it is so important to realize that your well-being is being affected. And that well-being is going to affect you adjusting to a new normal. The study goes on to show, as you see in this slide, that 28% of the people have reported difficulty concentrating, take longer to accomplish their tasks, have difficulty thinking, procrastinate with challenging work, and reported difficulty juggling tasks and responsibilities. So for those of you who are in the audience who may be parents who are working inside the home and, up until recently was responsible for also augmenting your children's education, you can only imagine and have experienced how stressful that is. So as we turn to the next slide, I want to be able to emphasize that adjusting to this new normal, living in a world overtaken by the coronavirus 19, seems to be one of the new challenges we're all facing. Now, as a health coach and self-care advocate, I was inspired to take this new journey in my life, in part due to the untimely death of my husband. He was an assistant principal at a middle school. I was a high school principal, and this occurred on a Monday. Did many of you know that the Heart Association have shared that most heart attacks occur on a Monday at the beginning of the work week? So little did I know that my family and I would become a statistic in experiencing this crisis. So now, as a health coach and self-care advocate, I educate people and I try to help people to create and live their best life through planned programs using habits of health and the dimensions of wellness wheel. The model includes 8 important dimensions of wellness, which include emotional wellness, coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships, environmental wellness, which involves good health by occupying pleasant and stimulating environments that support your well-being, financial wellness, which involves satisfaction with current and future financial situations, intellectual wellness, recognizing creative abilities, occupational wellness, your personal satisfaction, which of course has been impacted by a lot of people during COVID-19, physical wellness, recognizing the need for physical activity, healthy foods and sleep, social wellness, that sense of connection, and spiritual wellness. So as we move to the next slide, I'd like to give the impression and say that I'm doing all 8 and life is grand over at my house, but that is not the case. So as you begin to see the next slide, as we share information about the dimensions of wellness, I want to emphasize that even though we go through crises and trials and tribulations, but like life, I, as well as many of you in the audience, we strive for continuous personal growth. So, no, I have not perfected all 8 of these areas, but what I have found since entering into my own grief a couple of years ago and experiencing relocating, new job, parents who are aging, sons who have relocated, I realize, and I have experienced, like many people, many of you out in the audience, that trying to adjust, adapt, and create a state of equilibrium for the new normal of life can definitely be taxing. Our anxiety level and need for control are higher than usual. For myself, emotional wellness is heightened, particularly with concerns for my parents, whom are near 80 years old, and some of you in the audience may be caregivers for parents or loved ones. Also, my personal concern has been heightened for my adult sons, whom are professionals in essential frontline careers for healthcare and law enforcement. So as a health coach and self-care advocate, I actively research and look for ways to stay well, promote a healthy environment for myself, family, and the community. My life is dedicated to service to others, as evidenced through the experience that I've shared with you earlier. So now, let's jump right into a few tips from local experts in order to cope throughout this pandemic and to facilitate adjusting to our new normal over the next several weeks, several months, or several years. On the next slide, adjusting to a new normal requires embracing the feelings and emotions that you are experiencing. So for many of you, the emotions we have felt recently may range from worry, sadness, anxiety, anger, being confused and overwhelmed. It is the uncertainty of the situation that fuels our emotions. One friend in a text said, it's like we're in a bad movie, and I added, yes, and we don't know the ending. Many of us thrive on order and predictability. In fact, those of you who are educators on the line or leaders or parents leading households, you know how important order and predictability can be. Psychologists suggest that we validate how our regular lives have been temporarily halted during this time. The things that give us a sense of order, such as Saturday yoga class or the Wednesday night meetup, are not happening. We can make schedules to break up the day, include wake up and bedtime work, school, exercise, and family time, but be realistic about spending so much time together, and remember to plan time apart. As we go to the next slide, I want to emphasize that coaches and therapists have shared that another great way to handle the grief process, and it may not just be the grief of losing a job, it may be the grief of losing a loved one, but the coaches and therapists have shared that losing a job, canceling special events, missing out on regular activities and levels of stress is acknowledging what we can and cannot control. Focus on the way we respond, the way we act, the way we want to invest in ourselves. Positive reframing can hold a great deal of power during times of struggle and adjusting to our new normal. I encourage each and every one of you, take control of the situation by making a plan. When we identify a problem, making a plan for a solution. If you miss your friends, plan to FaceTime them. Put it into your schedule. So the research and articles had made several suggestions on what to do for emotional well-being, and you'll see them listed here on your screen. Some of you, rather than writing these down, may decide to take a picture. As a matter of fact, I would encourage you to do that. Take a picture of these slides so that you will be able to incorporate this into your life. All right, I think some people are saying that they're not hearing sound on their end. I'm assuming with the slides going that Martha, who is operating our technology, is able to hear me, and so I'm hoping the best, and we're keeping our fingers crossed. But what to do for emotional well-being? Find a therapist, someone who may be available through telehealth. Reach out to friends and family. Great. Several of you have shared that you can hear just fine. Also, the research suggests stay connected. Prioritize social and emotional well-being while complying with social distancing. Many people have done this by calling, texting, video message, writing letters, etc. Talk about other things you've overcome as an individual and or as a family. For myself, even while I was grieving the loss of my husband and the new normal of the context of my family, each day I started with a gratitude journal so that I can be reminded of the things that are happening right and that I'm grateful for. The research also suggests strategize your self-care. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that you cannot pour into others pouring from your own empty cup. Everyone reacts to stress differently, but there are common strategies in order to be able to cope. And specifically for families, build upon your stress management skills such as mindfulness. Find tips to help kids cope with stress. Research shows that physical activity and time in nature have a positive effect on your emotional well-being. And so as we move to the next slide, I want to encourage each and every one of you, keep moving, especially by going outside. What the research is showing is that there is probably going to be an increase in 3 areas as we get through this pandemic. All right, the 3 areas, hold on to your hats, that they say will be increased at the end of this as people reach out for resources is alcohol consumption, pregnancies, and weight. It is anticipated that the average person who did not engage in physical activity or getting out into their environment or watching what they eat may gain an average of 12 pounds. Word to the wise, take care of yourself emotionally and physically. Okay, so you see on your screen now, adjusting to the new normal also involves environmental wellness. Assess the space where you are spending most of your time. This means the physical environment as well as your online environment. You know, our environment also includes online communities, as many of you have experienced just by being on this virtual webinar today. I realized recently that much anxiety of my own came from reading Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter posts. And I'm sure there are other social media outlets out there that this baby boomer is not aware of, but my sons, whom are millennials, try to keep me a little bit up to date. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, as you're trying to stay connected virtually, and as we go to the next slide, Martha, I want to share with everyone, we can go down a infamous rabbit hole through reading too much, too late at night, and then realize that you're not sleeping well. So it's recommended to remove those notifications from your device or phone so that you can manage how much and what type of information is entering your environment. When I did this, my anxiety decreased significantly. So the research suggests that adjusting to a new normal, here are a few things you can do for environmental well-being. Feel free to go ahead and take a snapshot of this second of the 8 dimensions of wellness. Clean out a physical space in your home. Delete a social media app that is not pushing you in a positive direction. Join a supportive online community. There's one that I noticed that was called Parents Together, and they have a link entitled Coronavirus Parents. This facilitated group serves the community through offering ideas and activities. Also, review your comments before adding to social media. Look at the messages you're sending out. And for families, rearrange a space in your home to fit your needs right now. So as we go to the next slide, I want to be able to encourage everyone to realize that your environment is so important. And the next slide is going to reflect something more internal. The next dimension of wellness involves intellectual wellness, engaging in mentally stimulating activities. Now, of course, there may have been some activities that we've been involved in, before social isolation and social distancing, but I want to encourage everyone to explore a variety of resources for reading books. Yes, you may not be able to go to the library right now, but many of us may have Audible, may have books on Kindle, so get involved in catching up on some much-delayed reading. Take online classes. Deeper Dive Cloud9 offers some wonderful resources. Learn a new language. Listen to well-known authors. Read books aloud with your loved ones or your children. Stream educational movies from local centers. Break out the puzzles, word search books, and Scrabble. As we move to the next slide, I want to emphasize to everyone that you don't want all of your energy to go into learning about the virus and its impact. That can be very depressing. So it's okay to learn about something else other than the pandemic or local crisis. Because remember, right now in this state of isolation, you need to be preparing yourself for how you are going to rise above this situation on the other end. In this next slide, I wanted to share a couple of key points that was noted in the literature for your intellectual well-being. Know where to find the facts about COVID-19. Keep in touch with arts and find virtual resources. And for families, research and find local and national education resources for kids while we are all spending more time at home. Remember, take a snapshot of these slides so that you can review these later with your loved ones. So as Martha takes us to the next slide, which is going to be introducing occupational wellness and well-being, I want you all to realize that so many people have become unemployed or are changing their careers as a result of this pandemic. I was listening to a research the other day that reflected on the number of individuals who are unemployed nationally and statewide, as well as those who are experiencing hunger. So we need to remain prayerful as well as help those as much as we can. So in occupational wellness, you'll see here on the slide, review how your career and educational goals are being fulfilled. Take an inventory of your skills and your abilities. Create, reevaluate, and work towards your personal and career goals. You know, the universe has put us all in a standstill right now, not just to eat bonbons and to gain the extra 20 pounds or to have happy hour virtual settings, and then we have to address, our divine wine on the other end of this. But this is an opportunity to create and reevaluate your life and maybe do something that you feel purposeful. So many of you have already been aware of SMART goals So take a picture of that particular slide. In the interest of time, I won't go over the SMART goals, but I believe that this will be so helpful to you. And remember, access Deeper Dive Learning and Cloud9 for additional resources and online opportunities. So as we begin to go to the next slide, which will share some other suggestions for occupational well-being, I want to share that career coaches suggest developing a strategic plan while searching for a job in these times of uncertainty brought on by COVID-19. Most workers fall into one of these categories right now: suddenly unemployed but managing from home, was in the middle of a job search before COVID-19, or working but unsure about the next few months. Each scenario has its own struggles. It's recommended that all groups stay positive, celebrate small wins with rewards, and keep moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to be more tailored and strategic in the types of roles and organizations we approach if adjusting to the new normal of looking for a job. Take this time. I encourage each and every one of you to step back and look at what industries are hiring, what industries are going to thrive during the season we are going through. Develop a plan of action to really get ahead in the job search. I advise people who are working from home to use this time to shine rather than slack off as an extended vacation. I know it doesn't feel like vacation, especially those of you who have little ones still at home. Simple things like setting a timer for work time and breaks, moving around the house for a change of scenery, and setting up your day for your best use of energy will be helpful. I do believe that employee engagement, for those of you who may be managing employees at other locations, is going to be a challenge. However, this can be a time to stand out on your team. I recommend staying positive, celebrating your small wins amid the challenging times of transition through this pandemic. As you can see on this slide, which some of you may be taking a picture of, focus on your job search. Let your network know that what you are looking for. Stay optimistic, and you may even want to get a productivity book with a quick physical activity micro break to keep your body feeling great and mind sharp. And as for families, keep kids happy and busy while you work. It is a challenge working from home. So as we move to the next slide, which shares some examples of physical wellness, I want to encourage each of you to look at your physical wellness and plan your day. So the next slide will show you that planning your day around healthy habits and practices is so key during this time of a pandemic crisis. Forward movement is everything. So I'm here to share with you, it doesn't have to be a killer workout or a fast-paced run. Many of you may have been members at a gym, and gyms are closed at this time. It can be a stroll around the yard or a quick walk around the block, or just going up and down stairs if you have staircase in your home. Do 3 sets of 12 reps with some of those large-sized cans of soup you brought in bulk at the grocery store. I myself, each morning I wake up and I have a Pilates routine that I take myself through. I do elevated push-ups on my steps, and that works for me. And then I walk up and down my steps in 5 rotations. And if I'm watching TV, I make sure that I walk up and down the steps during the commercial time. Clinical mental health counselors have shared that getting outside and moving is also helpful in regulating our bodies. So ladies and gentlemen, take in some sun. That vitamin D is powerful, or some clouds, or some rain. Imagine how soothing that could feel, feeling the raindrops upon your face. Get some fresh air. So as we move to the next slide, which shares for you some bullets on what to do for physical well-being, I want to encourage each and every one of you, as you see this next slide, to become engaged with nature, because it helps us to downshift and reset, and it eases our nervous system. So as you look at things to do for your physical well-being, research online workout programs, take a hike or a walk today. Families, learn a new sport with family members who are in quarantine with you. That can certainly encourage your family closeness. So as we move to the next slide on the 6th dimension of the 8 dimensions of wellness, this 6th dimension is social wellness. And of course, we've all experienced social distancing and isolation, and for many of us, that may have created anxiety and feeling like we're cut off, especially those of us who are extroverts. The introverts probably really love it and enjoy it, but if you're like me, an introverted extrovert, which I know sounds a little bit crazy, but what I found out is that extroverted introverts are people who are generally extroverted, but they need to have that quiet space back home where they have that quiet space to be able to rejuvenate themselves. So social wellness, interact in healthy and stimulating ways with your community and family. I've seen many references to how social distancing doesn't have to mean social isolation. We may feel shut off from friends and family physically, but there are ways to stay connected with technology and smart planning. Right now, it's okay to walk around your neighborhood and wave to neighbors sitting on their porch. Just remember, the distancing. I saw a block party on one friend's Instagram post with people sitting at the end of their driveways. People in tough situations, mental health, ability, or domestic issues worry psychologists the most. As the weeks and months of social distancing have lingered on, as we try so hard to limit the exposure to this COVID-19, we could actually be making other situations worse. So, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage each and every one of you to reach out to neighbors, friends, and family who might need a quick text or call. Remember, people working at the hospitals, grocery stores, or trying to keep their small business running. A smile and a wave can go a long way. So as Martha takes us to the next slide, which has a few more bullet points for you about social well-being. Be kind when you drive. I choose one day out of the week with my mask and gloves on to go out and do grocery shopping or to check in on my parents. Plan a daily phone call with a friend. Myself, personally, I send inspirational texts to my sons, my parents, and loved ones on a daily basis. Practice random acts of kindness. Do Zoom, Skype, or FaceTime with a family member. Reach out to someone who may be isolated. And families, here's a thought. Find a pen pal for your child. Wouldn't it be wonderful in this day and age of technology that people all have an opportunity to exercise their writing? Go figure. So as we move to the next slide, which is spiritual wellness, which is slide 7 of 8, thank you so much, Martha. That is spiritual wellness and well-being. And this is the area where you have the opportunity to explore your purpose and your meaning. Fall in love with taking care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit. And I found in North Carolina, this was an interesting picture from a pastor where he noted socially distanced but spiritually present. Ladies and gentlemen, people rely on things like a job and community to define meaning in life. I was certainly one of those individuals as well. And when my husband was left this earth and was no longer with us, I had to redefine my life as a baby boomer in midlife, having an empty nest, and the changes that I was experiencing. So when the normalcy in your life is taken away abruptly, we question our purpose and need to find a way to stay centered and grounded. It's suggested that we take time in the day to recalibrate. That may mean meditation, prayer, or having an online community that you can connect with. I've also noticed something else going on as we adjust to this new normal. More families are spending time together, eating together. Parents who may not get the chance to tuck in their kids have the time to do so. It's a time to be present in our lives. We're all having to disconnect from the busyness of life. We're being more introspective and reflective about life. So as Martha takes us to the next slide, which I have some more bullet points for you about spiritual well-being, I want to share that people are having to slow down their pace. And as your pace has slowed, use this time to develop these 8 areas of dimensions of wellness in your life. So articles have shown that the 10% Happier, which is an app, has an amazing coronavirus sanity guide. I've spoken to several parents, some of whom are educators and, had been educating their own children over the last couple of weeks. And so the coronavirus sanity guide seemed to be a helpful option for many families. Find your faith community and get support through YouTube, Zoom, Facebook Live. Many churches have gone online to provide services for their congregation. Look for resources in your community. And if you can, share your time or funds with an organization that is delivering meals to children. And you may consider subscribing to a YouTube channel. So as Martha takes us to the 8th of the 8 dimensions of wellness slide, which shows financial wellness. And of course, that and occupation occupational wellness probably goes hand in hand. I'm sure many of you would think that, and I have thought that as well. But the studies show that occupational wellness is more, are you doing that which you feel purposeful for? And so oftentimes I've told people, sometimes we may not feel that they're working within our purpose, but our 9-to-5 job helps to pave our way for the 9-to-5 thing we're passionate about. But here's something that you might want to take a screenshot of. In order to navigate through these difficult times, research has shown ways to strengthen your family's finances. Here are 7 ways. Check your credit report, negotiate lower APRs on your credit cards, review, discard or shred old paperwork, review your investment fees, catch up on personal finance reading, take an online personal finance class, have the money talk with your partner, and I would also add with your children as well. For many people whose jobs have been negatively impacted, they're having to have what I call those heart-to-heart, come-to-Jesus conversations with their kids as well. So on the next slide, you'll see I have a couple more bullet points for you in terms of what to do for financial well-being. And as Martha is taking us to that particular slide, now that we're approaching the end of this presentation, I want to encourage everyone to get help making a financial plan. This will help to manage your financial stress. Know your health benefits as well. Go ahead and spend this time to access your state and national resources. You may not have thought to do this before, but now that many of us, our jobs have been impacted, this is a great time to do that. Save on food expenses, create a healthy eating budget, protect and manage your finances during the pandemic. So you can certainly have some more information through money.com, the Charlotte Observer, as well as wellness information. And as you see that on the next slide, thank you, Mark, for taking us to the next slide as we begin to wrap up. I want to offer all of you the opportunity of realizing that even though you are at a time of social distancing and social isolation, you can live your best life. And your best life involves trying to reach a flow, because it's hard to balance things, but trying to reach a flow within these 8 dimensions of wellness. And as Martha takes us to the next slide, Martha, if you would, I would also like to encourage everyone to realize that this could be the beginning of the next best season of your life. And it's so important for you to embrace it in that way. So for those of you who want to explore their health further, feel free, take a snapshot of that screen. Feel free to reach out to me before May 30th, also so that we can talk further. It's no fee. I just want to be able to help everyone to be able to make the rest of their life the best of their life. And so, Martha, as we go to that very last slide, which looks just like our first slide, I want everyone to realize that it is so important to take care of you. Don't try to pour from an empty cup when you're trying to help others to adjust to the new normal, because you have to adjust to the new normal as you help to lead others to adjust to their new normal. I'm Dr. Janae Bishop. It has been my blessing as a self-care advocate and habits of health coach to be able to speak to you today. You may take a picture of the slide that's on the screen and take care and know that we will come out on the other side and make the rest of your life to be the best of your life. Thank you. I turn it back over to Martha or Pam.
Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if Pam has anything else to say right now, but we thank you, Dr. Bishop, for what you've shared with us today, and encourage you all to visit our blog, to review the webinars that have been offered. Pam may want to speak now.
Yes, thank you, Martha, and thank you, Dr. Janae Bishop. We appreciate you giving your time freely today for this webinar, and that we will have a recording of this up on our blog as soon as we get that from Dr. Bishop or Martha, either one. You can visit our previous webinars from this series on our blog. I've put the address in the chat many, many times today as we were going through. The other thing I wanted to do is thank our other sponsor, Cloud9 World, for helping to make this possible. And Cloud9 World is a company that provides social emotional learning resources for children, mainly through schools, but you can certainly contact them. I would check out their website to see what they have to offer right now. And again, remind you that you can still access 2 free courses through Deeper Dive Learning for parents. having to do with literacy and working with your children. So you can just visit our website at deeperdigelearning.com, go to our store and access them that way, get your order in that way while they're still free. Thank you again for attending today. We appreciate you, and we hope that you are going to move forward and adjust to this new normal just fine. Thank you so much, everybody.